You're sitting alone in a cafe. Outside, rain taps on the pavement, and a steaming cup of coffee warms your hands. No one's bothering you. Silence wraps around you like a cozy blanket. Does it feel good? Or is something tightening inside, as if you're the last person left on Earth? Loneliness is a strange thing. Some flee from it like it's a fire, while others chase it like a rare treasure. But what do you really feel? Do you love loneliness? Or are you just afraid to admit it scares you? Let's figure it out. No big words, no fancy theories, just like we're chatting over that coffee. The skeptic in you is already raising an eyebrow. Love for loneliness? Is that even real? It asks. And honestly, how do you know if what you feel isn't just a mask hiding fear? Skepticism teaches us not to take our own word, or anyone else's, at face value. It pushes us to dig deeper, ask questions, and test things. So let's test it. Let's take loneliness and break it down to its bones. Imagine, it's Friday night, your friends are off at a party, and you're home alone. The phone's quiet. You put on some music, open a book, or just sit on the couch staring at the ceiling. What's going on inside you? If you feel a warmth, if you're savoring this moment where no one's invading your headspace, maybe you're one of those who truly loves loneliness. But if there's a chill in your chest, if the silence feels heavy like a slab of concrete, that's fear. And fear, you know, is sneaky. It can disguise itself as love. You tell yourself, I'm great on my own, I'm free. But deep down, you're waiting for a text or a call. The skeptic in you knows that's not freedom, that's running from the truth. I caught myself doing this once. About 5 years ago, I decided I liked being alone. I tell my friends, you go party, I'd rather watch a movie or read a book. It sounded cool. I was so independent, so self-sufficient. But then I noticed something. Every time I started a show, I kept my phone close, waiting for messages, checking social media. And if no one texted, I felt like something was wrong. That wasn't enjoying loneliness. It was fear that I wasn't needed. The skeptic in me said, hey, stop lying to yourself. You don't love loneliness. You're just used to enduring it. But it can go the other way, too. My friend Masha is someone who genuinely enjoys being alone. She can head off to the woods for a weekend, no internet, no people, and come back grinning ear to ear. When I asked how she does it, she said, I'm never bored with myself. I think, I dream, I listen to the wind. It's like a date with the best version of me. Sounds beautiful, right? But the skeptic in me still wonders, what if it's just her way of escaping problems? And that's where it gets interesting. How do you tell the difference between loving loneliness and fearing it? Let's dig deeper. Skepticism is all about doubt. It keeps us from drowning in illusions. So loving loneliness is when you choose it consciously. You're not hiding from people or avoiding them. You just know you're comfortable with yourself. It's like choosing tea over coffee, not because you ran out of coffee, but because you genuinely prefer the taste of tea. Fear of loneliness is different. It's when you're alone, not because you want to be, but because that's just how it turned out. Or because you're scared to open up to people, scared of being rejected. And instead of admitting that, you call your fear love for loneliness. It's easy to check yourself. Ask, if I could be with friends right now, would I go? If the answer is, nah, I'm good here, that's probably love. But if something stings inside and you think, yeah, but what if they're busy? That's fear. The skeptic won't let you lie. It knows the truth often hides behind pretty words. Think about how it feels in real life. You're walking down the street, surrounded by a crowd, but you still feel lonely. Or maybe you're sitting alone in a park, watching the sunset, and you feel so calm it's like the whole world belongs to you. Loneliness isn't about whether people are around. It's about what's inside you. If you're empty inside, loneliness will scare you, even in a crowd. If you're at peace, you'll enjoy an empty apartment. Here's the catch. We often don't know what's inside us. The skeptic says, don't trust your feelings blindly. And it's right. Feelings are unreliable. One day you think you love loneliness, the next it's crushing you like wet snow. Why? Because we change. Because loneliness isn't a fixed thing. It's like the weather, sunny today, stormy tomorrow. And the skeptic in us demands that we keep checking how we feel over and over. I know a guy, Dima, who dove headfirst into loneliness after a rough breakup. He told everyone he was loving it, that he was finally free. But I saw him obsess over social media, liking his ex's photos, waiting for her to text. That wasn't love for loneliness. That was fear of being alone with himself, without her attention. Then he started taking photography classes, wandering the city, snapping shots of sunsets, people, dogs. And one day he said, I actually enjoy being alone now. I don't need someone else to make me happy. That's the difference. Loving loneliness is when you're your own best company. Fear is when you're waiting for someone else to fill the void. But the skeptic wouldn't be a skeptic if it didn't ask another question. Is loneliness always a choice? Sometimes life backs you into a corner. You lose a job, move to a new city, fall out with friends, and suddenly you're alone. Not because you wanted it, but because that's how it happened. And here, fear of loneliness can disguise itself as anything. Pride, I don't need anyone. Independence, I'm fine on my own. Even spirituality, I'm finding myself. But the skeptic sees through it. It says, check yourself. Ask, if you could change the situation, would you stay alone? My neighbor Lena once told me about a time like that. Her boyfriend left her, her friends were busy with their own lives, and she was left alone in a rented apartment. At first, she tried to convince herself she was fine, watching shows, drinking wine, ordering pizza. But then she admitted, I was just scared to leave the house. Scared people would see the real me, lonely and lost. Lena started taking small steps to climb out of it. She signed up for yoga, went for walks in the park, even got a dog. And you know what she said? I realized loneliness isn't the enemy, but it's not a friend either. It's just part of life. Sometimes it scares you, sometimes it heals you.
And here the skeptic nods. Because loneliness isn't good or bad, it's just a state, like rain outside. You can love it, you can fear it, but it's going to happen anyway. The question is how you deal with it. Loving loneliness is when you take it in your hands, like clay, and shape it into something yours. Fear is when you let loneliness shape you. Let's dig even deeper. Why does loneliness spark such different feelings? Why is it oxygen for some and a noose for others? The skeptic says, it's not about loneliness, it's about you, about how you see yourself. If you're at peace with yourself, loneliness is like an old friend you can sit with in silence without feeling awkward. If there's chaos inside, loneliness becomes a mirror showing everything you don't want to see, weaknesses, fears, doubts. And the skeptic is right again. To understand your relationship with loneliness, you first need to understand your relationship with yourself. Take my friend Anton, for example. He was always the life of the party. Gatherings, hangouts, noisy crowds, that was his thing. But then he moved to a new city for work. No friends, no acquaintances. He'd come home to an empty apartment and not know what to do with himself. At first, he'd call old friends, talk for hours, but it didn't help. I felt like I lost myself, he said. Anton was scared of loneliness because without people, he didn't know who he was. But then he started experimenting. He took up morning runs, signed up for Spanish classes, even tried cooking something fancier than scrambled eggs. And slowly he realized loneliness isn't emptiness, it's space. Space to rediscover yourself. Now think about yourself. When was the last time you were truly alone, No phone, no internet, no noise. What did you feel? If you felt calm, if you could just breathe and enjoy the moment, that's probably love. But if you grabbed your phone, turned on music, or flipped on the TV to drown out the silence, that's fear. And the skeptic in you already knows the answer. It won't let you hide behind illusions. Here's another trap. Sometimes we think loneliness is something to overcome. Like if you enjoy being alone, there's something wrong with you. Society loves to push this idea. Being alone means you're a loser. But the skeptic laughs at that. It says, who decided you have to be surrounded by people 24/7? Who said loneliness is bad? Test those ideas. Break them down. Maybe you're only scared of loneliness because you were taught from childhood that alone means unwanted. I remember my mom always saying, "Don't stay home, go hang out with friends." For her, loneliness was like a disease, and for a long time I believed being alone was wrong. But then I started asking questions. Why do I have to be with someone all the time? Why can't I just sit in silence and think? And you know what I realized? Loneliness isn't punishment. It's an opportunity, a chance to hear yourself, your thoughts, your desires, but only if you're not afraid to listen.
What if you are afraid? What if loneliness feels like a dark room you're scared to step into? The skeptic says, don't run. Look inside. Grab a flashlight and see what's there. Maybe there's nothing scary. Maybe it's just you, the real you, without masks or filters. My friend Katya once told me how she was terrified of being alone after a divorce. She'd leave the TV on, even at night, just to avoid the silence. But then she took a chance. She started spending evenings without noise, just sitting, drinking tea, looking out the window. And you know what she found? Silence isn't the enemy. It can be cozy. Loneliness can bring not just fear, but strength. Let's go back to the roots. Why is loneliness such a tricky question? Maybe it's how we live. We're surrounded by noise, social media, chats, notifications. Silence is rare. And when it comes, we're lost. Like, without external noise, we stop existing. The skeptic asks, what if you just don't know how to be with yourself? And that's not an accusation. It's an invitation to look deeper, to try, to be alone. Not to prove something to the world, but to understand what you feel. Think about it. You're on the subway, earbuds in, phone in hand. What if you turn off the music, put the phone away? Just look at the people around you, at your thoughts, at yourself. Scary? Or maybe curious? My friend Olya tried it once. She decided to spend a day without her phone, just walking around the city, sitting on a bench, eating ice cream. It felt weird at first, she said, like I was naked. But then I noticed so much. Birds, the smell of coffee from a cafe, kids laughing. It was like I woke up. That's what loving loneliness looks like. Not avoiding people, but finding joy in the moment. But the skeptic pipes up again. What if it's just a way to distract yourself from problems? What if you're just scared of intimacy? And it's got a point. Sometimes we retreat into loneliness not because we love it, but because we're afraid of being vulnerable. Opening up to someone is a risk. Risk of being misunderstood, rejected, laughed at, and loneliness becomes a hideout. But the skeptic knows a hideout isn't freedom. It's a cage you built yourself. I know a girl, Anya, who avoided serious relationships for years. She'd say, I'm fine on my own. Why do I need anyone? But behind that, I'm fine, was fear. Fear that she'd be betrayed again, like in the past. She learned to enjoy loneliness, but it wasn't love, it was protection. And only when she started asking herself those skeptical questions did she realize loneliness doesn't solve her problems, it just postpones them. Loneliness isn't just about fear or love. Sometimes it's just there. Like the air you breathe.
It doesn't demand you run from it or worship it. It's just part of life. And the skeptic reminds us, don't make it an enemy or a god. Just figure out what it means to you. Think about how you feel when you're alone. Maybe you write poetry, draw, cook something new. Or maybe you crank up the TV to drown out your thoughts. Those are all clues. They tell you who you are in that moment. My friend Sasha once told me how loneliness helped him find himself. He was a party guy, bars, clubs, endless nights out. But then he lost his job and his friends moved away. At first, he panicked. He said, "I didn't know what to do with the silence. It was like a knife." But then he started writing, just grabbing his laptop and jotting down whatever came to mind. A few months later, he had a whole book. He said, "Loneliness gave me a voice." He's not a hermit now, but he stopped fearing silence. He found meaning in it.
What about you? Sometimes loneliness sneaks up uninvited. Maybe you lose someone close or move to a new city where you know no one. And there you are, alone, not because you chose it, but because life happened. The skeptic whispers, "Don't think it's the end. Check what you can do with it." Maybe loneliness isn't punishment, but a chance. A chance to find out what you're capable of when no one's around. My Aunt Nina told me about a time like that. Her husband left, her kids grew up and moved out, and she was left alone in a big house. At first, she tried to fill the void, invited guests, took classes, even got a cat. But then she said, "I realized I don't need all that to be happy. I started baking pies, reading old books, walking in the woods, and I found myself." She still sees people, but she learned to be with herself, and that was true love for loneliness. The skeptic's still not sleeping, though. It asks, what if it's just habit? What if you've just settled? And that's where you need to be honest. Loving loneliness isn't about shutting out the world. It's about being at peace with yourself. If you choose loneliness because it feels good, that's one thing. But if you choose it because you're scared of the world, that's another. The skeptic demands proof. It wants you to test yourself. Try an experiment. Spend an hour alone. No phone, no music, no distractions. Just sit and listen to yourself. What do you feel? If it's calm, if you're smiling as you look out the window, that's love. If it's anxiety, if you start fidgeting and looking for something to do, that's fear. And there's nothing wrong with admitting it. The skeptic doesn't judge, it just wants you to be honest. Let's look at loneliness from another angle. Sometimes it comes not as a choice, but as a test. Picture this. You're in an office, surrounded by colleagues, chatter, noise, but you still feel lonely. Why? Because loneliness isn't just about physical solitude, it's about connection. Connection with yourself, with the world, with others. If that connection's missing, you can be in a crowd and still feel empty. The skeptic asks, what are you doing to find that connection? And it's not about surrounding yourself with people. It's about finding meaning in what you do, in who you are. I know a guy, Misha, who worked in a big office. Everyone loved him. He was fun, outgoing, always the center of attention. But at night, he'd come home and feel like he had no one to really talk to. "I'm surrounded by people, but I'm alone," he said. That was his fear of loneliness masked by smiles and jokes. Only when he started digging into himself, taking psychology classes, keeping a journal, did he realize loneliness isn't outside, it's inside. And to stop fearing it, you need to make friends with yourself first. What about those who say they love loneliness, but are always looking for ways to keep busy? You know the type. They blast music, scroll through social media, binge shows, anything to avoid silence. The skeptic says, that's not love, that's running. True love for loneliness is when you're not afraid of silence, when you can just be. No distractions, no noise, no fuss. My friend Dasha told me how she learned this. She was always on the go, work, friends, hobbies, but one day she decided to take a break. A week with no plans, no meetups, no internet. I thought I'd lose my mind, she said. But then I started noticing little things. The smell of coffee in the morning, the way light hits the windowsill, the sound of my own laugh when I read something funny. She didn't become a recluse, but she learned to cherish moments alone. That's what loving loneliness is, not escaping the world, but being more fully in it. The skeptic's back, though. It says, what if it's just habit? What if you've just learned to tolerate loneliness because you had no choice? It's a good question. Sometimes we accept loneliness not because we love it, but because we're scared to change, scared to meet new people, scared to open up, scared to be rejected. And loneliness becomes not a choice, but a comfort zone. But the skeptic knows a comfort zone isn't always good. Sometimes it's just a cage you built yourself. I remember my friend Igor saying, "I like being alone. I don't like the chaos." But later, he admitted he was just scared of new connections. What if they don't like me? What if I say something dumb? He was hiding in loneliness like it was a fortress. But the skeptic in him wouldn't let him hide. He started asking, why am I scared? What happens if I try? And he tried. He joined a dance class, went to parties, even went on a few dates. And you know what he said? Loneliness is great, but being with people isn't so bad either. So back to you. You're in that cafe, sipping coffee, listening to the rain. What do you feel? Don't rush to answer. The skeptic in you knows the truth isn't always on the surface. Maybe you love loneliness, maybe you fear it, or maybe you just haven't figured it out yet. And that's okay. The key is not to lie to yourself. Keep asking questions, keep checking. And you know, sometimes loneliness is the best way to find out who you really are. But only if you're not afraid to look in the mirror.